I'm going to go ahead and get started. And I am thrilled to see that the room is actually full. This is really exciting. This is a panel that's kind of near and dear to my heart because this is a topic that I did my dissertation on. And then I had the privileged opportunity to teach a class on this topic. And so this is something that's very important to me, and I was just telling the panelists over here that it's amazing to see, some ideas that you really feel like people need to learn about, and then to be able to share those with people and have them actually absorb those concepts and then share them with other people. And so this is really just a very meaningful presentation to me. So I have several panelists here because some of the material that they did for this class was done in groups, and we have two presenters for the first group, Jocelyn Stein and Kristen Butler. They'll be doing how feminist perspectives can inform the way we interact with media messages, and then after they do their official presentation, they're going to do an interactive exercise, and when that's done, we'll go on to the next presentation.
You have a clicker.
I do?
Yeah.
All right.
That's all yours.
Okay. Good afternoon.
I see something. Now it's warming up. And we need to turn off lights to make it readable. I don't know how this technology thing works.
It's possible. Yeah. Okay. So my name is Kristen Butler, and this is my partner,
Jocelyn Stein.
and today we are going to talk to you about the F word. Feminism! Okay. So our presentation is how the feminist perspective can inform the way we interact with media messages. So before we can talk about that, we got to talk about feminism, okay? Feminist history. All right. It's broken into 3 waves. Now, the first wave occurs in the 19th and 20th centuries, and it comes out of the abolition and temperance movements. Now, the primary goal of this movement was equal political rights, okay? So education, employment, marriage laws. Now, this movement was led mostly by middle-class white women. It started officially at the Seneca Falls Convention in 1848, and that was led by Elizabeth Cady Stanton, who was a part of the Big Three, which include Lucy Stone and Susan B. Anthony. Now, more of the key players of this movement include Mary Wollstonecraft, also known as the grandmother of British feminism. Yeah, great, right? Margaret Sanger, who talked a lot about reproductive rights in this early period. Then we have Sojourner Truth, Olympia Brown, and Helen Pitts. These are just a few. Now, we have a big accomplishment in this era, and that is the 19th Amendment, the right for women to vote in 1920. Now, we're going to have some delays in getting more equality because of the 2 world wars and the economic depression. But, things heat up in the second wave. And this starts in the early 1960s and lasts the late 1980s. And now instead of, we're not trying to fight for the right to vote now, but we're fighting for more de facto inequalities. What I mean by that is more subtle, more unofficial inequalities. That means we are fighting for women to examine their personal lives as politicized. This lends itself to the phrase, the personal is political. And we see this in the consciousness-raising groups started by Ann Cote that were so popular in this era. We also have Betty Friedan in 1960 when she published The Feminine Mystique, and then, like she didn't do enough, she formed the National Organization for Women. We also have Gloria Steinem in this era, who publishes Ms. Magazine. And we have also Germaine Greer, Andrea Dworkin, Bell Hooks, Audre Lorde, Bella Abzug, Lorraine Bethel, Angela Davis, Michelle Wallace also. Now this is also happening in the environment of the civil rights movements and the anti-war movements. It's a very turbulent time. Now we're talking about, these issues that we're talking about are the women's roles in the family, reproductive rights again, marital rape rights. We established rape shelters during this time. We're discussing, we're more open to talk about sexuality of women, and we also are having women come into the workplace. The legislation that is passed during this time include Title VII, Title IX, the Equal Pay Act, and the big one, Roe versus Wade, legalizes abortion. This is all very good for women. We also have a push for the ERA, which is the Equal Rights Amendment. But unfortunately, whenever you have a movement, you have a counter-movement, and the anti-feminists won on that one. Wham, wham. So, with the feminist sex wars of the 1970s, we're having a lot of disunity among the feminists. We have the radical separatists who say, only women are women. This is more where the trope of the angry militant feminist comes from, and we know now that that is not true. And we have this sense, right before we get to the third wave, that the third wave is kind of a response to the failure of the second wave in a way. We're saying in the third wave, hey, feminism isn't just for middle-class white women. We're saying this is for everyone. This is for men. This is for LGBTQ. This is for African Americans. This is for everyone. We have to be diverse. We can't have one singular feminism. We can't have one definition of what a woman is. So that is the push for that movement. And we also have the issues that we're tackling in this include sexuality again, stereotypes of women, media portrayals, hey, that's what we're talking about, language used to define women, sex positivity, sex is good, and rape, reproductive rights, body image, and the glass ceiling. And we are reaching out to younger generations. Key players, Judith Lorber, Naomi Wolf, Rebecca Walker, Martha Davis, Betty Dodson, Miranda July, Sandra Oh, a lot of amazing women, and we are still in the third wave now. Boop, okay. Feminism and feminist theory. Again, what is feminism? The theory of political, economic, and social equality of the sexes. Now, what is essential to understand feminism is that we are operating from a social constructionist point of view. That means that we, as a society, create our society. We create our reality. So if we create something, that means we can change it. And this is, we can relate this to media because, a lot of the time, under an essentialist perspective, we think that these, our societal tropes are unchangeable, they're innate, they're essential. But under this perspective, we know that we can change it. We know that this is only created. It is not real. So when we are exposed to the thin ideal, we know that it's not real, it's just created. And that is so important to uninternalize the thin ideal. So media is not reality. The thin ideal is not reality. And this is all operating from a standpoint that institutions that control the media and all of our perceptions of reality have been historically male-dominated, patriarchal. All right, next slide.
Okay, so to understand a little bit about where we're heading with this, we wanted to go over a couple of ideas key to media and body image. So the first one is body image. Body image is your perception of your body. Not everyone's body image is accurate. So my perception of my body could be that I'm a 6 foot tall, with a six-pack giant man. That is my perception of my body. So, that's the important thing to know with media, with body image. It doesn't mean it's accurate. It's incredibly relevant, even though it may not be accurate. You want to do some theory?
All right, so first we have social comparison theory. This theory states that we compare ourselves on a daily basis. We compare ourselves to friends, family, celebrities. We can have upward comparisons and downward comparisons. In upward comparisons, we look at an image or a person, we compare ourselves, see that person, and feel bad about ourselves. We perceive that they are higher on a scale of attractiveness. And in a downward social comparison, you see a person and you perceive them as less attractive or less appealing than yourself, and you feel better about yourself. And we can see how this relates to interpreting media messages. The next theory I want to talk about is cultivation theory. This theory states that after prolonged exposure to certain types of media, we cultivate attitudes that are in line with that vision of the world that they're presenting. So this means, you know, if you are raised and you watch a lot of TV, you will cultivate these ideas that if you only see thin people on screen, you will wonder why you yourself are not thin, and you will accept that as the norm. The next one I want to talk about is feminist perspectives on objectification. Now, there are 10 of these. Objectification is seeing a person as an object. Okay, and so there are 10 characteristics of this. Instrumentality. The person is viewed as a tool for the viewer. Denial of autonomy. The person lacks self-determination. Inertness. The person lacks agency or activity. Fungibility. The person is interchangeable with other objects. Ownership. The person could be bought or sold. Denial of subjectivity. Person's feelings do not matter. They do not apply. We have the reduction to body. The person equals their body parts. Reduction to appearance. Treatment is based on appearance. And silencing. The person lacks the capability to speak. And I think you can see all of those in this.
It's our example of objectification.
Yeah. She is silent. She doesn't have a mouth. She doesn't have a voice to speak.
She is literally just her body. And so when we're talking about media and body image, this, unfortunately, is not all that uncommon. This is more common than it is uncommon. And so when we're talking about growing up in a media-saturated environment, we're talking about people who are raised with images like this everywhere they go. And this gets portrayed as the norm. When you turn on your TV, you know, most of the people would be described as, if not, you know, attractive, as incredibly attractive, gorgeous. These are the people that grace our magazines. You can't stand in a checkout aisle at a grocery store without being bombarded with an image like this. So what happens is people see these bodies and they internalize that as the ideal, okay? They forget that there's a whole range of bodies, because what we see most frequently, especially if you're watching that much TV and news, are bodies that are all the same. And so you internalize these ideals. And so if you internalize that and you then, you know, look at your own body and your own body image and you compare that to what you're seeing every day, that can have really detrimental effects on people's self-esteem and self-worth. They start to feel bad about themselves. You know, when you measure yourself against the ideal, you know, most people, not everyone, but most people are going to come out on the negative side of that, not the positive side, and going, wow, I'm better than the ideal. And so as people internalize that, they suffer from body image dissatisfaction, and they start to think they're ugly and they're not pretty enough, and that sort of creates a whole host of issues, which can eventually lead to things like eating disorders and other things like depression, self-esteem issues, and all of that. So we came at this, one of the things that got us interested, you can go to the next one, interested in this, is we sort of touched a little bit on the idea of feminism treatments of eating disorders, was something that sort of we talked about a very little bit that Chris and I are really interested in, because it sort of proposes a whole new treatment for both eating disorders and a whole new way to sort of take control of how you consume media. And so I think this is sort of a really interesting way to sort of understand the way feminism sort of asks you to look at all of these things. If you think about eating disorders, the traditional conception is it is a disease. It is a disease and it is an individual problem. So when you see a patient for an eating disorder, you are treating the disease that they suffer from. It pathologizes them and it medicalizes all of their issues. And, you know, while it tries really hard to get them to do all kinds of things, it makes this person feel like they are deviant and like they are a problem because they don't fit. Whereas the feminist conception of eating disorders is that it is not so much an individual problem as it is a symptom of a larger problem. One person's eating disorder is a symptom of a society that has created these beauty ideals and that holds these up to be such a sort of amazing, wonderful thing. And so in treating them, we can go to the next one, the feminist treatment of eating disorders is vastly different than the traditional conception of eating disorders. In one, it's sort of the traditional conception, the patient is sort of passive and it's all focused on weight gain. It's about changing eating habits, gaining weight, eliminating eating disorder behavior. And sort of establishing consistent and healthy eating habits. Whereas feminist therapy focuses on them as a symptom of a societal issue. So in addition to focusing on changing eating habits and sort of eliminating eating disorder behavior, it also focuses on handing control back to the person suffering, both man or woman, male or female. It gives them control. They have a say in the therapy, and it's all about empowering them as an individual. So you are not a problem. This is a valid coping mechanism for all of these things that society throws at you. But here are some ways that you can take back control of your life, is sort of what they focus on. And the participant is very much an active part of that. And one of the huge steps for that is helping develop media literacy in individuals with eating disorders. But the thing is, media literacy is really important for everybody. Because if you know how to interpret media and you know how to interact with media, media doesn't have the same effects on you. We are not passive recipients that just sit there in front of a TV screen and absorb everything thrown at us. We can choose to be if we want to be, but we don't have to be. And so one of the key treatments for eating disorders and one of the ideas in which feminism can help you change the way you interact with media messages is by teaching and promoting media literacy. So media messages play a huge role in constructing our culture. They're not the only institution that constructs our culture, but they are huge and they are prevalent, and especially with advertising, it is everywhere. And media is in the business of selling you beauty and fantasy and things that are perfect. So the other thing is media messages have multiple levels. So when I show you this ad, I'm asking you to go see this play Tartuffe. But the subtext of this is that this is clearly supposed to be attractive. This woman is white. This woman is thin, right? And so there's these subtexts in these ads. When you see a family getting out of a minivan in a car ad, they're usually a white, middle-class, heterosexual couple. And it sends these sort of subtextual messages that you need to sort of be aware of. And that boobs are all she's worth. That's a major subtextual piece in that ad. And so if you're able to see both the text and the subtext and understand all of the different layers of a message, you can decode it and you can start to understand. And it doesn't mean you have to reject it. I can still look at this and go, okay, like, I understand what's going on here. I don't have to totally reject this. I can still consume this media. I can still look at this ad when I walk into Conant. I can still go see this play. It just means I'm understanding what I'm seeing and that I'm not sort of passively taking it in, and I'm taking control back, and I can look at that and go, I really want to see Tartuffe. I think that's an inappropriate display of a woman's body for a campus advertisement. And so there are 10 steps to media literacy, and the whole point of media literacy is to teach people all of the things so that they're not just passive consumers of media. So we wanted to be a little media literate today.
Yeah.
So we have an activity. Part of being media literate is understanding, deconstructing messages, and talking back to them. Take away the power of these things. So what we're going to do is we're going to pass around magazine ads that all in some way objectify somebody, man or woman or child. And we're going to pass out Sharpies. Take one, maybe share with your partner, and then pass the box on. And the idea is, we picked these ads very carefully. So for example, can you guys see this? Okay. It is a very young woman. She does not look old enough to vote. And she is displayed in a nude colored dress with a giant perfume bottle with a flower on top. I think you guys can imagine what that is meant to symbolize. And this message is incredibly problematic. So we've changed it from Oh Lola to Oh Lolita. And the idea is that you're taking control back from the ad and you're talking back to it. So, you want to get one?
Yeah, and this is an ad for a bra, and it says a lot of splendors in French. And it's a woman, she's in lingerie, but she has wings, a butterfly kind. So my friend wrote, so if I buy this, will I become a fairy? Because like it's complete fantasy.
Or this one. This is telling you that you need this lip gloss to shine. Well, I don't know about you guys, but I think there's a lot of things that make me shine. Kind of my sparkling personality. Not so much what lip gloss I'm wearing. So it says on it, real beauty is internal. You don't need makeup to shine. And it's those kinds of messages just sort of, and the more you do this, the more you write on a real ad, the more as you look through a magazine, you start to go, these messages are ridiculous and unhealthy and unreal. And then it becomes a little humorous and a little less dangerous and uncomfortable for those of us that are sort of reading these messages. So take an ad as they come to you, grab a Sharpie as they come to you, and take power back and then put it up somewhere and encourage others to do the same.
All right.
Don't be passive recipients of the media, guys.
Our bodies are not flawed, the system's flawed.
Woohoo!
Thank you. All right.
You did it. You guys, if you want to put your ad on our little table for display. interaction with help. I don't know if you said that. If you guys want to share them, it can take a few minutes to set up the next presentation. If you guys have a really good one, you can come up and share it. Give it to me. It's really funny. Yes! Okay, so this one shows an inert model. Her eyes are closed, and the text says, "I'll see you forever." So that's kind of funny. That's Debbie. That's what we want to look like. Did everyone do one? Does it make you feel better? Hang it up.
Out of the way so people can ready? Oh, it's.
Everyone deserves it. Walk back to the. Okay.
Oh, put it right there. Yeah, we don't need it. I can move it once the video starts. Okay. Okay, so you can kind of hang on to those ads, and I just ask that when you are all done, just bring them up if you'd like to share them. You're more than welcome to, or you can take them with you. And please do put the Sharpies back into here, which is a toolbox that I ordered on Oriental Trading, and at the end of the semester, every one of the students got one of these toolboxes, and I put a number of elements in there that would help them to remember some of the concepts from the class so that when they finish the course, they would still be using those techniques to interpret media messages in a more positive way. So. The next presentation that we have will be primarily a video that the students put together. Anna Marie DeSalvo will be presenting the video, but she actually did this project with two other students that were in the class who are not here today. One of those students is at another university, and another one is in Spain and will be returning in the fall. And those students were Felicia Ellison and Katie Muller. And I will turn it over to Anna Marie.
Great. Okay. Hi, everybody. Before we get started with the video, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my portion of the presentation. So for the media and body image class, our final project was to find something that we're passionate about and focus it and relate it to media and body image. As an athlete, I play volleyball here at Oglethorpe, and most of my friend group, a lot of my friends are athletes as well. So for me, it was really easy to find out or to pick sports to relate my project to. So Katie and Felicia and I interviewed several athletes. They all play different sports, different positions within those sports, come from different backgrounds, and we got testimonies about how they felt about their bodies within their sport. So within these testimonies you'll see in the video, we focused on three things. First, we focused on what the ideal was within their sport, what the ideal body type is, whether it's volleyball, football, ballet, whatever it is, what they thought the body ideal was within their sport. And then how their body ideal changes when they go outside their sport, how they feel when they're around their friends who aren't athletes. The second thing we focused on was the dangerous dieting requirements that are pushed upon athletes by their coaches and their peers, and how that affects their body image as a whole. And the third thing we focus on at the end of the video is coping mechanisms and protective factors that athletes will use to fight against the harmful messages that their coaches and their peers and society as a whole pushes on them. So with that, I will show you the video, and I hope you learn a little bit more about sports and body image. to harmful media messages regularly. We see media messages so often that they can be internalized without our consent. A large amount of media content contain repeated messages promoting the thin ideal. Research about body image distortion suggests that the media can be a variable related to an increase in disordered eating and pressure to be thin. Many people look to the media to better understand cultural norms and expectations. We will be discussing how athletes interpret the body ideal, behaviors to meet this ideal, and protective factors against it.
Hi, my name is Trey Braun. I play offensive guard for the Georgia Institute of Technology.
My name is Paige Muller. I am a junior at Oglethorpe and I love hockey. Hi, I'm Kalila Massey. I'm a dance major at the University of Georgia, and my practice of dance is Bethel.
Hi, my name is Andrea Gustavo, and I play volleyball at Oglethorpe University.
Kevin Alford, in Georgia State. Football player, and I play offensive line.
Hi, my name is Felicia Ellison. I attend Oglethorpe University, and I've played sports including softball, lacrosse, and I run track.
Hi, my name is McKenna Bondarenko. I play volleyball. I am an outside hitter, and I go to Oglethorpe University.
Hi, I'm Dad Lee. I attend Georgia Tech. I play football, and my position is quarterback.
I'm Aaron Joe. I'm an offensive lineman, right guard. I'm also go to Georgia Institute of Technology. I play football, that's it.
Probably 6 foot or taller for an outside hitter.
Pretty tall,
Muscular,
fit, lean,
Defined.
tall, lean.
not too big, be able to move around in the pocket.
For like a defender or a shorter player, the body type is still really, really toned and muscular.
In the dance world, it just varies from company to company. Some companies might want, tall and lean. Some companies might want short and, lean.
6'6", 300 pounds.
Very muscular. Definitely want a strong core. Arms, like muscular, like.
6'2", 6'4", male, 230, 40 pounds, and just shredded abs.
You should not have a lot of fat because then you can't jump.
Offensive line, probably 6'4", 300 pounds.
Not big legs, just really toned, like no fat.
Really thick in the arms, thick in the chest, a lot of thick muscle mass.
A strong enough upper body that you can be powerful.
They're going to have extra weight on, but they're not going to be like sloppy.
Healthy and in shape.
The nature and physical demands of sports place athletes' bodies under judgment. Due to the high level of physical activity, athletes' bodies are usually similar to society's body ideal, which may enhance their body satisfaction. This body type requires dedication and hard work and may take years to achieve, if ever at all. Some male athletes still may view their body as lacking because, number one, their immediate comparison group includes other sports performers whose body also closely approximates or exceeds the ideal.
I look up Peyton Manning, Cam Newton, Robert Griffin, Russell Wilson.
Ray Lewis. Mostly because he's from my hometown and just growing up and seeing him. But just the passion for the game and how he plays is unbelievable.
Tim Tebow.
What are things you like about Tim Tebow?
Everything.
Number two, they are pressured by coaches to achieve a certain body ideal.
Here at Georgia Tech, they like to recruit more athletic guys that's at the quarterback position. I think I fit that role pretty well. That's just what they like.
Really, they like our weight lower than 300. They kind of harp every day about, the weight. And I don't think really just is the weight, but kind of overall health and, just being able to perform all the tasks that they want.
Number three, they are highly competitive and driven to succeed.
High school, I definitely won the state championship in my high school year. That was pretty awesome. College, I haven't reached the level that I want to reach yet, but I think I can get there and be successful.
Female athletes' bodies also approximate society's ideal, though they may experience a conflict between their body performance and their body's size, shape, and appearance in social situations. Research on female athletes indicate that body image is strongly influenced by their context.
there's the athletic approach to it, and then there's the audience approach to it. So there's two different opinions on what you should look like. Of course, the audience, the men, always think that you should have a tight, firm butt and look good in spandex. But when I'm on the court and everybody else has really thick, muscular legs, then I feel like I fit in, and that's what I'm supposed to look like. And then I go home to all my friends who don't play sports, and they all are super skinny and have no muscle, and I look fit, you know? And because my legs are bigger, I feel like I'm fatter, but my legs are really just muscular, which is a good thing, but when you look at it, it doesn't look like a good thing.
Marshall McLuhan once said he wasn't sure who discovered water, but he was pretty sure it wasn't the fish. In other words, when we are immersed in something, surrounded by it the way we are by images from the media, we may come to accept them as just part of the real and natural world. We just swim through them, unthinkingly absorbing them as fish in water. What cultural studies would like us to do is step out of the water in a sense and look at it, see how it shapes our existence, and even critically examine the content of the water.
I definitely feel content with my body in ballet class. I feel that I have a really nice body and the entire type, as good as it can get because it shows all things. Outside, when I'm getting dressed to go out to party with my friends, I don't have as many curves as the average black girl would have because I've taken a lot of that away. Because I can't have it in a dance world. It's not really accepted in the dance world for a black ballerina to have black curves, but it's inevitable because I'm African American. But outside of the dance world, I do feel a little less adequate when I put on my jeans, and my jeans aren't as, fitting, or, my top isn't as busty because my chest is so flat, because my weight is so low. I've never really thought about it, but at parties I always try and show off as much as I can and try and, do as much as I can to look cute because everyone else has all of the curves of extra stuff going on, and I really don't because my body is a dancer body, and that doesn't really consist of, a lot of fat, a lot of muscle.
Another source of body image pressures comes from significant others such as parents, teammates, and coaches regarding weight, body size and shape, and appearance. While some messages are positive, most are negative and can contribute to athletes engaging in unhealthy eating and exercise behaviors in order to lose weight and please their coaches.
Working towards being smaller and being what the ultimate prima ballerina looks like. In books, in magazines, on covers. The dance magazine that I love is our Dance Spirit Dance Magazine and Point Magazine. Everyone in ballet has this thought of, I need to be lean, I need to be skinny, I need to have this shape of what the world sees a ballerina looking like. Definitely plays a huge part in people's eating habits and their exercise habits. Every choice that I make is really revolved around my body type and what I want myself to look like in class the next day. I don't eat a heavy breakfast because if I eat a heavy breakfast, then I move slower in class. Usually I eat a bowl of yogurt, granola, and a banana. For days that I'm really hungry, I might eat a bowl of cereal and a banana, but even that is really cutting close. Specifically in the morning, if I feel, okay, this leotard will make me look thinner, I'm going to choose this one, so that I have a good Monday.
The ideal for a lot of African Americans in general is for their hair to be either straight, or if it's curled, then it would be a curl from a flat iron. When I play sports, I deal with feeling like my hair is not good enough when I'm outside of my sport. And I'll either have to straighten it a lot, which is damaging to hair, or I just have to wear it in a look that's not orderly.
Okay, I can look hard, I can wear the costume, my body's right, my image is right, I'm toned, I'm lean, but being an African American dancer, my hair is full of my mind all the time. Sometimes it doesn't look as clean and as precise as some of the other dancers that I work with. But when I have performances, I have to wake up extra early to do my hair so that hard?
I had to be below 285 pounds, but that wasn't really an issue for me. However, most of my other teammates were on very strict diets, often starving themselves for many days at a time, eating only cheese, drinking only water, and before meets, they'd sometimes go into a sauna and sweat profusely, dangerously, because they were dehydrated.
They're on the lookout, especially when we have activities that they're around. They'll, look at your plate and see what you're eating. And a lot of times, they'll give you a hard time about it.
Coach likes us to be under 300 pounds.
Steam room.
To the steam room. Steam room. To the steam shower.
Social comparison theory states that we seek to satisfy our needs for self-evaluation about appearance through comparison with other people. In other words, we use people who we believe fulfill the ideal as reference to evaluate ourselves.
My butt is a little bigger than the other girls in my class. I tend to choose things that make me look thinner and make me look leaner around all the other girls. So I tend to wear black, and I do the things so that my mind can feel as though, I look the part.
Protective factors are conditions in individuals, families, or the larger society that eliminates the risk that a person will be affected by harmful media messages. There are several protective factors that athletes use to feel good about their bodies. These protective factors include: Number 1, positive person-oriented coaching style rather than negative. Performance-oriented coaching style.
For a big guy, I think football positively affects your body image because it gives you more of a reason to be big. You understand that your bigness sort of helps you with your sport.
A lot of times I see people, like my friends that don't play sports, and they have really thin bodies or really little bodies and are really thin. When I play volleyball, that gives me like an opportunity to kind of like have an excuse for having a bigger body, because I know that my body has to like be strong and be big for my sport. So I think that it kind of gives me a reason to have a bigger body.
Number 2, social influences and support from teammates with healthy attitudes towards size and shape.
Teammates have big muscular bodies like me too, so I kind of have like, like a buddy that like has the same body type as me.
My dad's always been a super positive influence because he was, from day one, like, you need to eat healthy, you need to be strong, and he was always like, you're a grown girl. So he would always like keep really healthy. He'd like make me rep for games, so he was definitely very positive towards that.
Number 3, coaches who emphasize factors that contribute to personal success, such as motivation and enthusiasm rather than body weight or shape.
It takes a toll on self-image and the way you feel about yourself, but I feel like I have a strong sense of self, so it's kept me really intact.
I know that if I work hard, on the field and off the field, and just do all the, the right things, that success can be built on. So that's what I'm really excited about, just trying to make yourself better. And it's a process. A lot of times people think success, comes, maybe next month or something like that. It's a gradual process. So I think that's why I believe in this.
I hope you were able to take away some things you didn't know, and maybe now, if you're an athlete, you can look out and say, okay, this is why I feel good when I hang out around athletes, or this is why my coach, or these are some reasons that I can protect myself from the messages of my coaches, the media, my peers. So thank you, everybody.
So So in a sense, I feel like Katie and Felicia were here because they were on the video, and you could hear their voice too, so I felt like they were present in some way. And this next presentation was something for a final project, and the class itself was very organic in nature. I had a certain concept of what media and body image was, and as I got to understand the student interests, I allowed them to incorporate some of what they were particularly interested in, and we still didn't have, obviously, enough time to cover everything about media and body image, and so that's part of what the final presentations allowed people to do. So this next presentation was something that we didn't get a chance to cover in class, and I'll turn it over to Zach and Bethany.
Hi, we don't have fancy name tags. Wish we did. But I'm Zach.
I'm Bethany Varnado, and we're presenting on gay and lesbian body images. Before we start, I just want to make it clear that this is not just about individual problems. This is about our society and the attitudes that we hold as a whole. It reflects important social values and problems that we really need to pay attention to and adjust. And it is not just relevant to the gay population, even though that is, depending on your study, between 2 and 10% of the population. So this is really an important issue that we need to pay attention to.
All right, so, yeah, there we go. All right, so the beauty standard, which some of our other presenters have gone over. Beauty standard is an unobtainable expectation for physical attractiveness that people internalize and believe they need to meet themselves. And when they internalize this and see that they don't quite meet the standard, they tend to feel badly about themselves. So for women, this tends to be tall, thin, big breasts, big hips, long, shiny hair, symmetrical facial features.
Thin, thin, thin.
Yeah. For men, this is low body fat, high muscularity and definition, smooth skin, tall, and symmetrical face, and etc. We're exposed to the beauty standard countless times a day through media messages and through body policing. And body policing is when we see our peers. This was especially relevant in high school for high school girls. When you see someone who looks like they're gaining weight, and you say, oh, you need to eat less, or something like that. That's an example of body policing. Social comparison theory says we compare ourselves to our peers and how we meet the beauty standard compared to them. So as other presenters have said, there's upwards and downward social comparison theory. It contributes to body image dissatisfaction, as for most people, the beauty standard can't be obtained.
So, what does the beauty standard mean for gay and lesbians? And no, it's no coincidence that the initials of beauty standard is BS. So, just because it affects you much in the same way. Just because you're gay, it doesn't mean that you don't see the magazines in the grocery aisle. It doesn't mean that you don't see the billboard when you're driving to work. It doesn't mean that you don't have the same attitudes from your peers and from your family about what your body should look like. So even if you consume specifically gay media, you're still by no means immune to our broader cultural standards. But even more importantly, gay individuals can be even more susceptible to internalizing the beauty standard, towards taking that to heart, to feeling inadequate when you don't meet it. And gay men, women, and heterosexual women have very high rates of body image dissatisfaction for reasons that we are about to discuss.
So, homosexuality and attractiveness. Cultural attitudes are a very large factor in affecting individual body image. So studies in the 80s and 90s found that college students viewed gay and lesbians to be less attractive than their heterosexual counterparts. So they considered masculine lesbians to be substantially less attractive and hostile and unappealing. Feminine or neutral lesbians were considered less attractive than what were considered to be masculine heterosexual women. And gay men were considered effeminate and non-masculine, which is very important to appear to be if you are a man, because that is part of the standard that we're held up to.
So I think a really important piece to understanding body image in the gay and lesbian population, or in any minority, is a theory
called entitled minority stress theory. And this is saying that any minority in our population undergoes significant psychological stress on a daily basis. And this is due towards discriminatory events, which is anything from someone looking at you funny because you're gay to someone, perpetrating a violent attack against you. Then there's the perceived stigma. This is the discrimination that when you're walking out of the house in the morning, you expect to receive from the culture around you. And then there's internalized homonegativity. And this is when you take to heart those ideas that being gay is less, that it's unnatural, that it's wrong, that it's amoral, and you really start to believe either consciously or subconsciously that these things are true about yourself. So it goes without saying that this idea makes gay and lesbian people especially susceptible to taking the beauty standard to heart. This is evident by a study that showed that gay men who were the victims of anti-gay attacks or even anti-gay speech have higher rates of body anxiety than the rest of the gay male population. And that's it. Okay.
So, all sexes and orientations who are looking for a male partner are subject to what's known as the male gaze. And so they try to meet the male's standards for physical attraction. And gay men and heterosexual women have a thinner body ideal as opposed to straight men and lesbian women. Gay men have a much higher desire for muscularity as opposed to their heterosexual counterparts. And gay men and heterosexual women have a much higher body image dissatisfaction, generally across the board, than heterosexual men. Lesbian women are generally very similar to heterosexual men in terms of body image dissatisfaction. However, while it may look that there's something common, all of these together are not enough to show causation, and so it cannot simply be reduced to looking for a male partner leads to body image dissatisfaction.
So another reason why we might see disproportionate levels of body image dissatisfaction and BID in the gay population is that you're trying to use your body to express your identity. There is one study performed by Duncan called Embodying the Gay Self, and it essentially found that it studied gay men who are living as a minority in the culture and are seeking some kind of community, and they usually find this within gay subcultures. Unfortunately, in some gay subcultures, there are even more stringent expectations for what you have to look like. So they turn to their body, trying to create very, very low levels of fat, high musculature, to signal to the rest of the gay community and also to the world at large that I'm gay. And so we can assume that this is generalizable, and there's a similar effect with lesbian women. But at any rate, one thing that we can take from this is anytime you're in a situation where you feel like you have to make your body fit into a certain mold, it's going to contribute significant levels of psychological stress.
So there's a very common stereotype that gay men are, in fact, appearance obsessed. And so gay males tend to exhibit far more body image dissatisfaction and issues than heterosexual men. Generally, gay men do in fact value appearance more than heterosexual males. For them, maintaining a hypermasculine appearance is very important because they are generally perceived as effeminate, and to do so also helps signal that they're gay to other members of the culture.
Okay, so there is another similar myth that lesbianism can protect you against body image dissatisfaction. Depending on the study that you look at, lesbian women do have lower rates of body image dissatisfaction, or they have higher rates of body image dissatisfaction. But most of the studies are saying that the rates are about the same with lesbian women and heterosexual women. So if we want to go with the idea that lesbian women have lower rates, one possible explanation is their increased likelihood of adopting a feminist outlook, which, as Kristen and Jocelyn explained, could be a very important factor in mediating how you interpret media messages and how you view yourself and your body. So lesbian women have a much higher tendency as minorities to adopt a feminist standpoint.
There's also a theory that says that being part of a woman-loving culture, as opposed to our broader woman-objectifying culture, can really help insulate you against the beauty standard and body image dissatisfaction. But as Sarah Grogan found, the onslaught of media messages of the beauty standard that you experience on a day-to-day basis, no matter how heavily involved you are in a lesbian subculture, it's really, really hard to counteract that.
So, you might wonder, why do heterosexual women have similar rates of body image dissatisfaction? So, as sexuality is not usually apparent during early childhood, women are socialized generally in the same manners. So they're socialized from childhood to conform to the beauty standard and to value appearance over most things. Women are punished by society if they don't meet these standards by methods we talked about, like body policing. Research has shown that body image concerns may not be as closely related to attracting a partner as cultural values and expectations for appearance. Expectations are the same for women regardless of their sexual orientation, so it doesn't matter if you're straight, gay, bi, it's pretty much the same across the board.
Why? Objectification, sexualization, and power. As we already learned, objectification and sexualization are going hand in hand. You could say that sexualizing someone is a way to objectifying them. It's basically taking someone away from their role as a sentient human being and making them the object of your desire. So for anyone essentially that's not a white heterosexual male, objectification and sexualization are a daily reality. In this one study, heterosexual men were more likely than any other group to indicate that body weight was a significant factor affecting their attraction to a potential partner. Or also constantly subject to the male gaze, like we talked about, the awareness that you are being looked at as a minority, you are being looked at by the dominant group, being evaluated and judged on your physical appearance. We can think about this as gay men, gay women, straight women. All of these minorities are in a fish tank swimming in the water. That is cultural attitudes, our expectations, media messages, and it's pretty easy to see straight heterosexual men as the observers of that fish tank, watching us sometimes flounder. And so both women and gay men are subject to sexualization by the dominant group, and that can be really, really damaging. And even when gay men aren't objectified, they're still subject to marginalization from the dominant group because they don't fit into hegemonic ideas of what masculinity is.
So, right. So, how does specifically being media portray? You just did that. Great. So there was a study by, we messed with our slides just before this, by Joseph Swartz and Julie Angerson. They did 4 decades of research into magazines, and they compared specifically gay male targeted magazines Out in The Advocate to other popular magazines like Rolling Stone, GQ, and Sports Illustrated. And they compared the images of males in them, 1,578 images as a matter of fact. From the highest circulating magazines. In gay magazines, it tended to be much higher levels of body of muscularity and lower levels of body fat across the board. And the percentage of images with lower body fat increased over time, as well as the percentage of higher muscularity increased over time. And so images directed towards gay men were about as muscular, but significantly less body fat than for the heterosexual ones. Both magazines showed steady increases in muscularity and a decrease in body fat. However, it was a bit different for the gay targeted magazines. Now, it's true that not all gay men read gay targeted magazines, but I think it's certainly more true that heterosexual men do not read the gay targeted magazines. So when the gay men do read both of these, they get a double dosage of the beauty standard, and it can be particularly harmful because of drastic differences and more obtainable beauty standards.
And one recurring theme in as we were doing our research for this is there's not enough research.
Yeah, so a lot more could be done to strengthen the amount of information we have in this field. Like there could be studies into
like subcultures. What's the difference between a butch lesbian and her body image and like a more femme lesbian and her body image? You know, if we have a gay man who identifies with the bear community, how is that different than someone who's in like a more mainstream gay male subculture?
And there is little to no explanation for bisexual men and women that we could find at all. So,
and so that's our presentation, but I really want to make sure that we leave you guys with the understanding that this is not a gay issue at all. This is about all of us. It's about our cultural attitudes towards women, towards minorities, towards anyone who's different than us, and furthermore, it's about our attitudes towards the body. For those of us inside of the fish tank, our bodies are valued for what they look like, not how we think, how we feel, how we act, how our body serves us. It's about our appearance. And so as much as this issue is something that affects each of us on a daily basis, it's also something that each of us have the power to combat on a daily basis.
As a heterosexual but very funky male, I would like to apologize for all of these things, but I'm in solidarity with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so our last presentation, I've been told, is about 8 minutes, so we should have plenty of time. What we may not have time for is questions at the end, which I was hoping to have. But I think this is just the very nature of this topic. It's so interesting that we always end up talking for a little bit longer than we anticipate we are going to. So Julia is presenting actually for two people who put this presentation together. Kirsten is, I think, returning back from London today, this afternoon, so she's not here to share the presentation, but Julia will do an excellent job, I'm sure, of presenting to both of us.
I hope so. Hi, guys. As she said, my name is Julia, and Kirsten and I, as Latinas, decided to look at studies that look at how Latinas are portrayed in the media and how Latinas consume mainstream media messages. So facts and figures, why is it important to study Latinas and body image? Well, in 2003, Latinos became the largest minority in the United States. Some of you may not have been aware of that. If you weren't, catch up with the times. Read a couple of Census Bureau data just for fun, because that's what I do. And the data also suggests that by 2050, nearly a quarter of us in the United States will be Latino in some way, shape, or form. Studies of primetime programs, despite our large numbers, suggest that overall, from 2000 to 2008, only 5% of the characters in primetime programs, say that 5 times fast, were Latinos, and only 2.5 were Latinas. So despite our large numbers, we are greatly underrepresented in the media. And overall, in the research that Kirsten and I did, we found 2 themes in the literature about Latinos in the media. And that is that Latinas are either portrayed as domestic servants, maids, housekeepers, or nannies, or as vixens, or basically, in the terminology that we've been talking about, Latinas are objectified and sexualized. So we prepared 2 different types of visual aids for you guys today. First is a Cosmo magazine, Cosmo for Latinos. And this comes out about 2 times a year. Cosmo is one of the few mainstream magazines that does this. And this is what is marketed specifically towards Latinas in the mainstream. So what I want you guys to do is to look through the pages that have been flagged and kind of see how these images or the messages in these articles portray, first of all, the large ideal for women, which is usually thin and very toned, and also how Latinas specifically are receiving certain messages about who they are and how we should be in the mainstream culture. So just pass that around. And Kirsten also went through the internet and found a list of the top grossing Latina actresses, and she just Googled their names and found these images. This presentation is going to focus mostly on the victim side of how Latinas are portrayed, and this is the video that Kirsten came up with. Oh, the volume isn't working. Whoever's working the volume. This is the page full of song, Aya Ocho. Okay. That is a Latino program that Kirsten grew up with. So we are objectified in our own cultures as well. All right, so what are some of the themes from looking at the magazine and the video that you guys see? Just shout them out.
Hypersexualization.
Okay, anybody else? Any curves, okay. Anything else? All right, you guys are right on point. The research suggests that there are several themes relating to the woman's body that we see in Latinas and how they're portrayed in the media. First, there's an overt focus on sexuality, specifically active sexuality. Latinas is the ones who go after the guy or are really seductive. A lot of the images are focusing below the navel, the buttocks and the crotch genitals area. There's also the toned, thin ideal that we see in primarily white media as well. So just the idea that you have to be super thin and very toned, but we are also expected to have curves and a very voluptuous hourglass shape. I don't know how that's going to work out. And we're also expected to be a little bit light-skinned, which is, if you've ever been south of the border, you get all colors, all shapes, all sizes, and J-Lo is not really the typical Brazilian, the typical Colombian, the typical Mexican, the typical any type of Latina. All right, so what does the body image research say? It says that, first of all, when Latinas consume mainstream media messages, we had a really hard time finding research that shows how Latinas view images of Latinas in the media. So in terms of mainstream media, which Latinas are 2.5% of, at least they were from 2000 to 2008, we see that Latinas are not impervious to the thin ideal. So they still internalize and are aware of the thin ideal. And also that we have a negotiated view of the media, which means we view these messages that we're supposed to be thin but curvy and still really toned and very sexual, and we disagree with them. We see that they're unrealistic, but we still apply them to ourselves and internalize them and want to live up to them. Another point is that Latinas view it as all for the male attention. So you are supposed to look this way to be accepted by men. be they white or Hispanic men. And also, Latinas in several studies have found that they notice that there's a lot of dieting ads going on. There's a lot of focus on needing to lose weight. And even though Latinas report dieting in terms of health and to take care of themselves, they know that the main type of dieting that's advertised is to look thinner and to be thinner. So how about for younger kids who are viewing this? Well, body image research that focuses on a specific subtopic called Latinidad, so your identity as a Latino, has found that teenagers who consume a lot of mainstream media, specifically music video, movies, and soap operas, have lower self-esteem and lower body esteem. So they feel worse about themselves than teenagers who do not view that much media. But that specifically teenagers who view a lot of mainstream music videos and movies and soap operas and self-identify very strongly as Latinos have even lower self-esteem and body esteem because they don't see themselves as measuring up to what is essentially a white, thin ideal. And this goes along with the acculturation studies that say that the more that you as an immigrant, or any kind of immigrant, but specifically Latinos, internalize American ideals and you see yourself as falling short, the worse you feel about yourself. So what is the message of our presentation and of the research that is out there, although there's very little research out there? The message is that Latinas are marginalized, but we are desired. And what I want you guys to take away from this is that our cultures have so much to offer, more than our butts, more than our boobs, more than our lustrous hair that somehow just happens to wave magically whenever we walk into a room. Not all of us look that good in bondage type dresses, except for J-Lo, you know. So what Kirsten and I were really passionate about is wanting people to know that there's so much out there about Latinos that is not said, so much out there about our subcultures, about the groups that have immigrated into our countries and made a home for themselves there, and we want you guys to know that J-Lo is not the ideal. Thank you.
Wrap things up. I think it's about approximately 3:28 right now, so we have 2 minutes to wrap up. I don't think we'll have time for questions, but I do want to thank everybody for coming, and I think that the work really was excellent in this class, and these presentations do represent some of the top work that was done. It kind of speaks for itself. And one of my goals in the class was to encourage not just media literacy, but critical media literacy, meaning that you start to question the messages that you see all around you and you become more critical of them, so you're not as accepting of the messages that are presented on a regular basis from the time that we wake up in the morning to the time that we go to sleep at night. And I just want to end with a quotation that was actually from Kristen Butler in one of her papers, and I made a little postcard that was one of the tools that they had in their toolbox. So it says, our bodies, and it has OU, you know, proper letter, honor, Oglethorpe. Our bodies are not flawed, the system is. And leave you with a message that you can all kind of take away to just respect your body. And that will take you one way. Thank you so much for coming.